on to the second year project, and I'm pretty sure it was this book. I think Photo Essay was one of the titles that we explored. So Photo Essay, we did explore some of the titles in our summer project as well, but yeah. So here's Photo Essay, here's my little my map and inspiration page. And then the first photographer I picked was Royna Galka, because he looks at documentary photography and like catching people like in London. And I basically just went into London, did some, honestly these shoots were so bad, but look, you can literally see from day one of year 2, my presentation is just so much better than year 1, like just so much better. Like that's how much the step up is. Like it just had to be better, and they even gave us like black books and stuff. Like, no, this is my experimental 2. I looked at Emanuel Rosario, who kind of documents his friends like on a road trip and them just having quite like fun, and the people just look like comfortable in front of the camera, which is what I wanted. So I came up to London with my friend and tried to make her look comfortable in front of the camera, and as if like obviously like we're communicating with the camera, and then like just out in London on the like train and stuff. I did really like this shoot at the time as well. Then I looked at Maya Fuhr for another experimental for Photo Essay, and she kind of documents people in like their messy bedrooms and stuff, so that's what I did. Literally shot this one on my phone as well. Shh, don't tell anyone. No, I'm joking. I didn't. I did shoot some of this. Like I did shoot it on the camera, but then the camera died. But yeah, so her room isn't actually this messy. Like we made it messy and put the bears there and stuff. And then you have to write a statement of intent about what you want to do in the future with your shoots. And then we moved on to our development shoots. Then I looked at the idea of documentary photography and making people feel uncomfortable, I'm pretty sure. So I thought that these people in these pictures of, I think it's Rineke, this woman, she like takes pictures like in a really gloomy setting, and the people look uncomfortable. And then the collages that Raoul Haussman does are quite disturbing, so that's the idea of which I got. So I then got my friend in a bikini and photoshopped her into a gloomy background, which is kind of what a mixture of like a collage, digital manipulation and stuff. Yeah, I took her like pictures in gloomy Paris. I thought also an idea of what would look uncomfortable, and it's kind of documentary style, is like this person takes pictures of people in their offices, Louis Qail. And I thought of the idea of like, this project is a bit of a mess, not gonna lie, of having someone in not their work uniform but working. So I got my uncle in his gym gear at work, so basically putting someone in a location which doesn't fit like their attitude or their outfit, I don't know. Then this is Materazzi, and her photography, or his photography, is really cool. Like look at this, definitely search Materazzi, really cool photography. I basically did this, yeah, like trying to make, like it's uncomfortable, isn't it? It's kind of a different vibe. Then I looked back, thought about my ideas, and then basically the idea of this shoot, it's got Holly in a prom dress, but so you'd normally wear a prom dress at quite a formal event, but she's holding McDonald's, and the way she looks at the camera is kind of uncomfortable in one picture, but then kind of relaxed in the next picture. And then the lighting, the angles is all like deep as well, but I don't even know. And literally this shoot is one of my favourites. Like this is the first time I used a flash gun, and like I literally loved it. Like honestly, I do really like this shoot. With the same idea of like, you don't even know, like so much deep stuff went into this. The same idea of like, I'm sure I had an artist study somewhere. You can see like in the second year there's barely any artist studies, but yeah, the same idea of like the uncomfortableness, but also like women and inequality and art, all of that stuff. I took pictures of Freya in her house, but still wearing like quite a formal dress and like formal face, but she's like holding like a random shoe and like kitchen stuff. Yeah, that was my development 5. And then my last development was basically trying to make, if a male was looking at the picture, trying to make him uncomfortable. So I got like basically Holly with loads of pads around her and like in her prom dress and looking uncomfortable. And then basically the idea of this being split up is in the gallery, like it would be massive, so it made like be quite overwhelming to the viewer. So it would be massive, like literally the size of the wall in the gallery, and it's split up because like, yeah, oh my god, I could go so deep about this picture, like honestly, and this is what I did this months ago. So yeah, that was the end of that project for photo essay. But then I think these 2 books, or maybe that did go towards our A level. I think that was one of our coursework projects. Yeah, that was one of our coursework projects. This is my second coursework project, and honestly, this was my favourite coursework project out of all of them. This was engaging the viewer and individual identity. So this is my mind map, this is all my ideas and all my artists. And like, it's my inspiration page. As you can see, like, as the projects go through, I like stepped up my presentation game so much because I just put so much more time and effort into photography. So the first artist I looked at for engaging the viewer and individual identity was Clang, because he basically rips up loads of different people's faces and puts them together, like physically manipulating them, and that's what I did. But honestly, it was kind of crap. Like, it was my first shoot back after the half term, and I was just like, well, stop putting the text like on each side because it just took so long to cut. So I just started printing A3 and sticking it on one side. And then my next shoot was Ann Callis, and her photos kind of symbolise stuff about like feminism and like sexuality and stuff, but she takes pictures of cakes, and I thought that looked really appealing because I never did still life, and I thought I'd try out still life. So basically bought loads of cakes into college and put them on loads of different blankets and stuff I brought in with me, and yeah, so that was an excuse to eat loads of cake. My third shoot, I thought I'd look at Tim Walker for like engaging the viewer, because his photos are quite engaging and colourful. He always takes pictures of like celebrities and stuff. And I loved the idea of his colour and poses, so that's what I tried to imitate in my photography, and I tried to make it really quirky. I got the umbrella out, got Freya to wear like a leopard print dress, and the idea of using the gloves shows about like housewife kind of like feminine identity, stuff like that. This is honestly one of my favourite shoots. I say this all about this book because this book is my favourite book, but yeah, so took pictures of Freya with the gels and the umbrella and stuff, and honestly I love this shoot. Then I thought I would go and investigate like gender stereotypes and stuff, and that's links to, you had to link it to your first project, so that linked because that was a similar thing that I did in my first project, like about feminism and stuff. But then I also went to Paris Photo, and I saw this photographer, and I still don't know the name, but he basically did multiplicity, and it was like this man sitting in a theatre, but there was just loads of him sitting in a theatre, and every pose was different, and honestly his photography was so cool that it inspired me, but I didn't know his name, so instead of using him, I used Scott Eaton, and he basically does the same thing, like multiplicity, but it wasn't not as cool as this one I saw at Paris Photo, which was quite sad. So yeah, then basically photoshopped Freya using like the mask layers, and there's like 2 of her, so I started with doing like 2 people in the multiplicity, and then basically because I was talking about like feminism and meanings and deeper meanings in photos, I thought you have to use an alternative influence, so I used the music video Ape Shit because I was literally obsessed with it at the time, and in media I also used that. But yeah, I just really liked the lighting and the meaning behind Ape Shit, so it inspired my shoot. So for my second development shoot of this project, I used the kind of bluey lighting, and I used like flowers, the colour red and stuff like that. It all kind of links, but also it's just fashion photography at the end of the day. Like, it is just fashion and photography, but there's so much meaning behind it, and there's also the leopard print from the previous shoot, so that links to the style of the fashion that I was doing. Then this was my other alternative influence because we weren't really allowed to use that many photographers. I used Marwane Pallas, because she like takes pictures of women that look really uncomfortable, and they're quite engaging photos. And then also the wall posters, because it links to the gloves in the other shoot before with Freya and the Tim Walker shoot. And like obviously like it's quite deep and meaningful, like her work. That's when I got to this, where I use like the tools with Cleo and the red and the blue and bringing like all the colours together basically. And then I used the gallery visit, so we went to Paris Photo in November with college, and that's where I got a lot of inspiration from all my like photographers, and we had to make a little artist statement, and I'll read it to you just because like basically they were like, they're kind of setting us up for the real world of photography, so you could probably leave college, go on to like either a foundation course or uni and be prepared like to make a website and stuff. So this is my artist statement for this project. So I said, in my photography I like to highlight femininity amongst things that wouldn't be necessarily be deemed as feminine. Obscure fashion photography incorporating different themes with predominantly female subjects. Influenced by culture, colour and cinematography, I prefer to focus upon the finer components which make up an image of a woman, and that can be anything she wants. So that's my 8th artist statement. And then basically I brought back the idea of multiplicity, and I did a shoot with Melissa, and I used a lot of pink and blue because they're like typically male female colours. Used the hammer again, got the gloves back, but this time they're pink, and I quite like this shoot. Then I got out of the studio but still used the idea of multiplicity and took a picture of Hannah in a kitchen, because that's where women should be, you know, in a kitchen. And then for my final shoot I brought all of the ideas together, all the fashion, the colour of the gels in the studio, brought the studio lights to the kitchen, did multiplicity. I spent so many hours editing this, so many hours you don't even know. I spent 2 days at college in the half term editing because I didn't have Photoshop at home, and I honestly was so happy with these pictures in the end. Like, this was my favourite project. And these were the images, so that's the first image I chose as my final, and then this is my second, and I basically printed this out in A2 and massive for my final images, and this was my last coursework for my final year at photography, and I was actually really happy with it. Like, some of the Photoshop is a bit dodgy, but I spent so long editing it, like I just had given up at that point. Yeah, that's everything for that project, and honestly, it was literally my favourite photography project. Like, so I literally didn't think I could beat that. Like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but like, I just was, at the end of that, I was like, yeah. So in the end, I got A- or like A for that. Like, I think I got like, I don't know, like I don't know what mark I got, but I definitely got an A for that project. Like, it brought me from like down to like up here, because I think I got a B for the previous project, so it brought my other project up. And then came to the exam project. Sorry, I feel like I've been filming for so long, and you probably don't care, and you've probably clicked off. So if you're still here at this point, like, I want to congratulate you because I've been talking for so long. This is my exam project. This is what I got, like, quite a lot of marks on, and we did it, I think, in like 2 months basically. So we had to, so for the exam there were 12 titles we could have picked from. Like, we did Educast, so yeah, there was 12 titles we could have picked from. There was Fractured, Masterpiece, Spin and Front. So I did a mind map and added like photographers that I could have potentially used for all of them, titles, and then yeah, and then for my experimental shoots I looked at all, like, 3 of the titles. So I looked at Daniel Murtagh for Fractured. I looked at, so this was my Daniel Murtagh for Fractured, basically the experimental shoot, and then I looked at Maurizio Di Orio for my second experimental shoot, and I really loved his work with the colour because I love the colour in photography. Like, my photography is quite colourful and quirky like that. And I didn't really copy his work completely, but I basically got this, like, I basically used still life but shot it like I was shooting a fashion shoot with a random statue from my lounge that was reflective, and I just love using gels basically. So yeah. Then for front, I used the title front as well, which I didn't really like this shoot particularly, but yeah, so this was front. And then this is the photos for my front, so yeah, Jospehine Sacabo or something like that. And then this is my inspiration. I basically, even though you can't really tell from those pictures, I basically decided to go for fashion photography and then look at like the early 2000s and like the noughties. So this was my inspiration, because I changed my mind in my statement of intent for my development shoots. So then I looked at Antonio Lopez, who was like a photographer and illustrator in like the 80s and 90s, and he does like lots of colours and fashion, and then basically took pictures of Lily in her bedroom, but with like an 80s kind of phone, and did diptychs. I'm like rushing this book, but I just really didn't like it. And then I did a double artist study and looked at Piet Mondrian and Ben Toms, who looked at like blocks of colour and like gels and stuff like that, which then led me on to looking and going to sketch and taking pictures of Jemima in sketch. And because I looked at blocks of colour and layering, I put like the picture of her behind the background, and like it's kind of a bit trippy. Not trippy, but you know what I mean, like quirky, I don't know. And we had to do another alternative influence, and my photography teacher suggested looking at the early iPod ads, because early iPods came in the early 2000s, so I looked at the ads for that, and then I kind of got inspiration from that and did like silhouettes with Freya, and these are quite like trying to be early 2090s colours with like a silhouette, and she wore like early 90s kind of fashion. And then from that I looked into the psychology of like colour in marketing, and then looked at events of what happened in the 2000s, and then looked at different brands, magazines and like campaigns. So I looked at loads of different things for my research, but it all kind of came together. So this is my research in the theory of colour, then this is like what happened in the 2000s, and then like YouTube fashionistas and stuff. And then I also looked at different brands and their current campaigns for summer and spring, because then I decided in my idea development, which is this paragraph, that I wanted to go and look at doing my own brand campaign for my final. So my own brand campaign. So I thought I'd start off this by like doing like a little fashion shoot and putting like blocks of colour behind it. And basically what happened is I had to improvise with this shoot, because I got there and the camera it literally didn't work. Both me and the model, who's Cleo, she also took photography and sat next to me, and we were both there like in the middle of like nowhere, and we were like, we literally couldn't get the camera to work. We googled it, we literally spent half an hour trying to get the camera to work, but luckily I had like a film camera with me, because I also like used that to take a few photos when I went away. So yeah, I shot this on film. Like this is the first time I'd shot on film, and they actually came out really nice, and I really like this shoot. Then for that I started doing like writing for the campaign, and I tried to do like a mixture of studio and out of the studio, and use like 2000s fashion and different colours, like try and experiment with the colours I wanted to use for my final images. Finally, this is like my final, this is what I did in the exam. I went with the idea of like doing a spring collection of denim. I took pictures of Freya in London and in Bushy Park, and I basically merged them, and that is my final images. They're really kind of disappointing, like I didn't really like them, but I got nominated for an Oscar at college, and so did Freya. Her photography is sick, like Freya's is really cool. And we both modelled for each other, and at the Oscars we were like, oh, I hope we don't get picked, because either one of us, it would have been bad, because we'd either have to go up or our face would just be on the screen, because we both modelled for each other for our finals. But yeah, so that's my final images for the second year of A-level exam. And then we could pick like however many we wanted for the final, but I only printed out this one for my final images. And that's it basically. And then we had to do like a development evidence page and talk about how each idea linked to each other. And yeah, basically that is it. That is my 2 years of A-level photography. And it took so long. It honestly took every waking minute to like do that. Like, I did really love photography, but if you don't have enough time, like if you don't have enough time already, don't take A-level photography because it's very long. Like, did you just see how long that was? That was a lot of time and effort that I put into that. But that's how you get basically an A. If you have, well, I don't know what exam mod, I'm not saying anything because every teacher marks differently, but I got an A for that kind of work, and that is the standard that you need to get up from. And they do like to see improvement, so like from photo essay to my last project, which was, I did masterpiece in the end because my campaign was my own masterpiece, basically. It's my own masterpiece, my own creation, because this actually kind of benefits me in the future because I kind of want to do